Hello everybody, I am so glad you are here with me tonight. It is Wednesday, August something. I can't even tell you what day it is because it's like this year and every day of the month it seems to be running into the other day. So I don't even know what day it is, but I know it's August and I know it's Wednesday. Hey Debbie, how are you doing, honey? We're going to be doing our sugar skull tonight. Here is the finished look. I do have, typically lately we haven't been base coating with you guys because a lot of the patterns that we're doing are bigger and they're intricate. So, time wise, to keep our videos down to where we're not on here for an hour, we typically base coat prior to, but this pattern is so small and so easy. So we are going to go ahead and base coat one together tonight. I know Tamara already did this pattern, so really and truthfully, maybe we shouldn't have put me on the schedule to do it too, but hey, that's okay. I'm gonna go ahead and do it. It's the same exact thing that Tamara showed you. It's just doing it with the colors that we use at Your Editor Us and with the paintbrushes that we use. So hey Joyce, hey Debbie, I'm so glad you are here. It has been a busy day over here. I am getting into the swing of fall. Zach is going out of town this weekend, so Monday we are making a huge load from Conroe down to Pearland of all of the painted fall yard art that I have. So I've been just working like crazy on my end trying to get stuff ready to go because season's already here for us and it's crazy. It's insane. I feel like this year just started and we're already getting into busy time. So, I don't even know, y'all. I feel like my days are just flying by. It's just been nuts. How is everybody doing tonight? I hope everybody's doing good. We've been doing good, just trying to stay afloat over here with virtual learning and working and all that good stuff. All right, y'all. So, I do have a plain blank skull. All it has is 2 coats of white. So we always do 2 coats of white. Anytime white's your primer, you're always going to want 2 coats. Whatever your primer is, you're going to need 2 coats whenever you use MDO. It really soaks up a lot of your paint once you put it on there. So it requires 2 coats. So this has, like I said, 2 coats of white. And I'm just going to go ahead and get started getting my colors on here. Hey, Mom, how are you doing? I hope everybody's doing good. We just ate dinner and tried to catch up on Big Brother from Sunday night because there's Big Brother tonight and Big Brother tomorrow night, which I have a live tonight and I have a live tomorrow night. So I told my family, okay, we got to start catching up during dinner time because we're going to get behind. But we've had a pretty good day over here. Virtual learning seemed to go a little bit easier today than it has on other days. And yeah, we've just been kind of working at it and getting stuff moving on along. I put way too much paint on here. I was painting in my assembly line style today, and so whenever I'm doing that and I accidentally squirt too much paint, I always take it and rub it off on the next piece or wipe it off on the next piece. And so I'm getting, I guess, a little overzealous with the amount of paint I'm putting on here because I went a little too heavy. So I had to open the top of my bottle and kind of put some back inside of my bottle because it is a bit much. I think I'm good. Okay. Now, while I have this yellow out, I am going to go ahead and, touch on the little berries that are supposed to be yellow. Really, that's something you could do with a script liner that would probably be easier for most people. But since I already have that color on my brush, for me, it makes sense to just go ahead and get it on my little berries on the flowers. So now I do have a couple of dots on the face that are supposed to be yellow. But because those are so small, I'm gonna do those with a script liner. So I'm just washing out my paintbrush right quick. I am using that Cotman 5/8 mop brush. This is the same brush that we always use whenever for any of our base coating. So any of you that are new, this is a Cotman 16 millimeter or 5/8 mop brush. And it gives you really good coverage for your base coating, for your base layers. So that is my yellow. I am going to switch to light purple because I always try to go, whenever I'm doing this, I'm using that same brush. I kind of wash it out and I bring it back to my piece. So I'm just trying to go from light to dark. That way if I have any color left in my brush, it's not gonna come out on everything else. So let me get a little bit of this purple. Try not to put too much this time, like I just did on my yellow. So this is just a little bit of that light purple. When it comes to this pattern, once I do a sample of it, and then all of my pieces get tagged with a color list, and of course all the ones I have in front of me don't have a color list. But once I do that, I have to create a color list for all of our customers. So, you know, if after the fact I decide, man, I should have done this color or I should have done that color, for me, it's a little too hard to switch at that point because I've already, you know, printed labels. I've already put it online that these are the colors we're going to use. But if you don't care for this color scheme, or maybe there's a color scheme that you prefer better, feel free to use whatever scheme you want. Don't feel like you're stuck to this. This is just, you know, an idea of some colors that you can use, but in no way is it the one-all be-all kind of answer. So whenever it comes to choosing colors for any of the blanks that we do together, I always try to pick out multiple colors that make it very colorful, but that also blend well together. So I did purple, teal, and yellow, but you could very easily switch some of these out for something different. I'm washing back out that mop brush so I could add in my teal. I kind of always shake that excess water off, or else whenever I'm trying to smooth out this paint, whenever my mop brush is wet and I'm trying to smooth out paint, I get a lot of lines because my bristles, you could see right now, they're kind of wanting to separate because they're wet. And so I'll get those same lines in my paint. So you'll see me shake that brush out a lot and try to get that excess water out. And you'll also see me take the wet brush and come to my edges first so that I can attempt to get as much water out of my brush as possible. Water in my brush is good on shading and outline. It's not good on base coating. So if you're somebody that maybe only has one brush that you base coat with, I totally get what you mean. If you know, you're struggling with that when it's wet, go ahead and shake it really, really hard. And then I also squeeze that excess water out. All right, y'all, so that's teal number 7. And you can see the color contrast between the teal, the light yellow, and the light purple. It looks really good together. So I'm kind of just taking that tip of my brush where I have a little bit of paint left and coloring in my berries with it. Quite honestly, this would be a lot easier to do with a script liner, but for me, I'm always looking for quick and fast. So quick and fast means I want to do as few brush changes as possible because I do this for a living. This is my job. So if I don't move quickly, I don't make money. So for me, you know, I try to move as fast as I can. So, hey, Carolyn, I'm so glad you're joining us tonight. Carolyn says the bottle in a Ziploc. Could you use it instead of the jars? The bottle in a Ziploc, could you use it instead of the jars? I'm not sure what that means. Instead of the jars of paint, are you saying to put your jar in a Ziploc bag? Jars of paint really, me personally, I prefer squirt bottles because it's quick and it's easy for me to pick it up and squirt it on my piece. I use these bottles because I paint, for instance, if I'm gonna paint this sugar skull to sell, I'll probably paint 30 of them at a time, if not more, because they're so small. And so I take this squirt bottle and I literally sit in the chair that I'm in and I roll around the room and I have tables full of the same exact pattern. So I roll and I do one with the teal, and then I roll to the next one and I do it with the teal, and I roll to the next one and I do it with the teal. And it's an assembly line kind of style. So whatever you feel like you need to store your paint in that makes it easier for you, as long as your container is closed, you don't have to worry about it. Now on our squirt bottles, you know, you have such a small hole, so we don't have to really worry about things drying out because they are so small. All right, I'm gonna switch to my lime green. You can do Christmas green if you prefer, but I really felt like with these colors, lime green is gonna give you a better contrast between your colors. So again, because you're also working in a small space, this might be a little bit easier for some of you guys with a script liner. Feel free to use a script liner if that's easier for you. It's really one of those things that if you've practiced a lot with your mop brush and you feel comfortable with your mop brush, you can make that mop brush work in small spaces. But if mop brushes are not something you're quite comfortable with, this is probably going to be a little simpler for you with a script liner. Alrighty, just get a little dabble of that lime green on there for my base coat. Hey Terry, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Let's see, Carolyn says, yes, can the squirt bottle go in a Ziploc to store? You totally can, but you don't have to. This is my cart. I showed it to you guys on my last live. But this cart goes around my shop with me. Y'all, we have a 2,800 square foot workshop. So I cover a lot of territory. And so I used to keep all of my bottles on a stationary shelf, and I was constantly walking to that shelf against one certain wall in one little place to grab all of my items. And so since I've started to do the painting lives, I have to bring this over here to do my lives because I paint in a totally different spot on my lives than I do when I'm working. And so I've kind of become now accustomed to having everything on my cart, and it's really nice. I can roll it around and have it next to me anywhere. But I have these squirt bottles always, 100% of the time, sitting out like this. And my workshop is not climate controlled. It got up to 99 degrees in here today. When it's cold, it is, you know, it could be 30 degrees in here. And I still don't have an issue with the paint getting dried out or anything like that inside of my bottles. So I think it's because you have such a small tip on here that it doesn't allow a ton of air in there to, you know, dry your pieces out or dry your paint out. So I wouldn't worry about that. So let's see, Joyce says, I'll probably use about 5 brushes or more. I keep changing brushes for sizes. Hey, you know what, Joyce, you do what works best for you. I've become accustomed to using only a couple of brushes because I do this so much and so often. You know, it's just one of those things I teach myself how to use something that's I can use almost universally across the board for all of my pieces. You know, but if it requires you to use a few more other brushes, totally, go for it. You know, this painting is all about making yourself comfortable and you being in the zone so that it works for you. That doesn't, you know, what might work for Ashley or might work for Mary isn't gonna work for everybody else. So I really encourage y'all to do what you feel like you need to do. Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you, Joyce. Joyce says you're so good at it. Honestly, it's been one of those things that when I was younger and still lived at my parents' house, I recall watching my mom paint, and I would go into her art room and talk to her and just sit there and watch. And I was always mesmerized by what she was doing. This is a little bit of red number 20. But I was always mesmerized by watching her because it was just like, wow, how does she do that so fast? And so I would get a lot of confidence from watching her because I'm like, oh, that's easy. I can do that. And then I would go try it myself. And I'm like, oh, just kidding. It's not as easy as I thought, you know? But I did learn that through watching her that you can do this because she taught herself. My mom taught herself. And so it's one of those things that, you know, you just got to practice. For me, I started doing yard art, honestly, to be able to pay my bills and feed my daughter and, you know, keep our lights on. And so it was one of those things that I kind of didn't have an option. I was teaching school as a single mom, you know, raising a child by myself and paying bills by myself. And, you know, we had to do without a lot of things. So I was always that kind of person that I wanted to be able to provide more, but didn't feel like I had the means. So, you know, taking on a hobby and working was something I just had to do to be able to give my daughter, you know, everything that she needed. And so I'm so glad that over the years, this hobby has become a full-time job for me because it's something I love, you know. And people ask me, what do you do for fun? I'm like, paint, even though it's my job, but it is something I enjoy. I just love it. And I've been blessed to be able to be at home now for 5 years, working for myself. And I never thought, you know, I'm in my 30s now, but at the time when I left, you know, public education, I was in my 20s. I just never thought that I could make it on my own. And it's been so nice to be able to do that. But it is a lot. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of having to figure out how to move as fast as you can, you know, so that you could produce more product. I think that's just part of being a business owner or somebody who manufactures your own product. Time is of the essence, you know. So I kind of like to go off on my tangent sometimes, so that's my tangent for tonight. But I'm using shading purple, and I'm using my script liner. This is a Royal Gold number 4, and I'm coming in here around the eyes because it's such a small area that there's no sense in me using any brush other than a script liner, because I'm gonna have to really fill in all of these CNC lines. So if I'm using any other brush to try to get a base on here, I'm still gonna have to come back in with a script liner. So because it's so small, it doesn't make sense to do 2 brush changes. Do 1 brush for the whole thing. So use your script liner, come in, get your shading purple on each eye, and leave it at that and move on. Hey Cece, how are you doing? I'm so glad you're here. I love you too. Cece's my aunt, that's my dad's sister. Her name's Cheryl, but I know her as Cece. Anytime I start picking up my script liner and using that, I either tend to talk too much or not talk enough. It does take a little bit more of you know, a focus sometimes. For whatever reason, my CNC, we put a new spoil board on the CNC this weekend. And the spoil board is the part underneath your sheet of MDO that is your sacrificial layer. So that means when we're cutting through the MDO, there's a sheet underneath it that we have to cut into a little bit that protects us cutting into the actual machine, right? So that you can cut fully through your layer of your wood without damaging your machine. So we have something underneath every sheet of MDO, and it's called a spoil board. And so we had to put a new one on this weekend. Well, anytime you put a new one on, you're always gonna have issues with kind of recalibrating your tools and the depths at everything that you're cutting. So I don't know if y'all can notice this, but this side of the pattern is really, really, really deep. And this side of the etch lines is very, very shallow. So you can see deep, deep lines, and then come over here and shallow. You almost barely see that. And so we were having a ton of issues with that CNC. So this eye was kind of deep, and my brush gets down in that groove and stays in that groove. This side is more shallow, so I have to really pay attention to that groove and making sure that I'm kind of staying along those lines. So the deep etch lines can be annoying, but at the same time, I love them in the sense of my brush will sit down in there and go around really, really quickly. All right, so I think that's good for my base coated version. I would go ahead and put some black in the middle of the eyes right now, but that purple is still so wet. So there's your kind of base coated version. Everything else that we're gonna be doing was with a script liner, which is why, you know, we're gonna go ahead and switch over to our dry piece. I do already have the same exact thing dry. The only difference is I did get the white, the black inside of the eyeballs. Now I can't remember if I Windexed this, and I did not paint this today. I painted this last night actually. So you always want to make sure you Windex. If it's even been a couple of hours since I painted it and I'm about to start shading or outlining or highlighting or anything like that, I'm going to go ahead and clean it off with Windex. There's a lot of dust in the air here in my shop because of the CNC running. And so I don't know if it's dust, I don't know if it's pollen, I don't know what it is that gets on top of these pieces that makes that paint kind of fly outward and separate really bad. But it does it all the time. And Windex is always gonna be your friend. You're gonna wanna use Windex in between layers when you're putting on another layer on top. All right, so this piece is already base coated. So 2 coats of white, and then obviously got your colors on here. So the next thing we're gonna do is add a little bit of shading. The finished product does not have much shading. The only shading I really have is a little bit inside of my flowers. Now I want you to pay attention inside of the flowers. Notice the only thing I'm trying to do is kind of have a circle, like an imaginary circle in the middle. And the little swish marks are kind of going around the middle. And that's the way that you can keep it looking like a flower. So it's very easy, it's not hard to do, but it's easy to almost kind of go sideways or crooked or horizontal or vertical and lose the whole idea of what you're trying to do. So think about it like trying to go around in a circle, and it might be a little simpler for you. I was trying to see if I already had a cup of this one, I don't. All right, so on the teal, I'm going to use a little bit of seafoam green. Or no, not seafoam green. I take that back. Sky blue. Wrong color, y'all. I'm getting all confused over here. This is how I get so dirty. Because I make boo-boos and then I just wipe all the paint on myself. All right, a little bit of sky blue. Now, this is actually one of Carly's canvas paintbrushes. I'm not sure I'm gonna like it, but it's a smaller brush. It's probably on the level of maybe a number 8 shader, flat tip brush. So I'm gonna attempt to use hers. And I'm kind of just gonna do a couple swishes, maybe one little C or a double C, or maybe like a W, I guess would make more sense. It doesn't really have to be anything specific or perfect. It's gonna kind of just be random. So not much yet, because we still are gonna come back in here with black and white. So it might look a little silly at the moment, but we're gonna hit it with some highlights, lowlights, and it'll turn out to be a lot different than what it is. All right, so that was my sky blue. Now I'm gonna grab a little shading yellow. I was painting Hocus Pocus witches today for fall. So I was just using this one, so it's actually already mixed together. Usually my shading yellow is very separated. So same thing, just kind of, you know, a little here, a little there, not too much. I know it looks a little funky at the moment, give it a little bit. So let's see, Cece says, I'm good, love watching your awesome work and artistic abilities. Give Carly a hug. Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you. You know, I was never really an artistic person. I was crafty. I've always liked crafts and trying to make things. But for me, painting yard art was more of a learned skill. So anybody can learn it. You don't have to be crafty to figure out how to, or to learn how to do it. Because, you know, I wasn't somebody who was initially all that great at it. It was more of a, you know, you got to survive, so you're gonna have to learn how to do something. I feel like so many of us have been there before. So here we go. All right, so shading is done. I'm literally don't have anything else to shade. Now it's time to grab my script liner and start doing all of those finishing touches. So the script liner I'm using is still, it's a Royal Gold number 4. Now, here's a newer version of it that's nice and pretty and straight. Here's my version that I've painted hundreds of pieces with that's bent and, you know, looks like it's about on its way to the trash can. That's the way I love my brushes, because they're nice and broken in for me. So I need to come in with a little bit of light yellow and a little bit of lime green, and then the rest is all gonna be black. So the rest will be easy. I see a little bit of something over here. I don't know, but I feel like if I don't clean that off with the Windex, my paint might separate. All right, now I'm gonna get a little bit more lime green. I always grab a cup when I'm working with the script liners. For me, that makes it a lot easier. I'm trying to see, I know I have my water over here. For me, it makes it a lot easier to be able to mix in a little bit of water. Oh, it's over here, not on my cart. It's sitting next to me on the table. So I like to always add a little bit of water. It's easier for me to mix that paint in and then get that paint to glide the way I need it to glide. So I just put really a tiny little bit in here of that lime green. And I'm just kind of butting up to those lines that the CNC already made for me. Because this is such a small surface area, there's no need to attempt to outline that. That would be very difficult to do. You're talking about a width of maybe, I don't know, 1/4 inch on the skinnier part. So don't even attempt to outline, no point. Let's see. Okay, you're gonna have to help me. Is it Michon? Michon? I'm not good with names. But Michon says, what inspired you to learn? My mom had started painting yard art when I was a kid. Her and my dad started doing it to really, I guess, bring in another income. They did it for themselves to make some yard art because they couldn't afford it. And then they had friends and neighbors seeing what they did and they wanted to buy from them. So they kind of started from there. And so as a child, I only remember, when I think back, I really only remember my mom and my dad working, doing yard art after their day job. So they would go to work all day and then come home and do yard art at night and on the weekends to make ends meet, you know, and raise the two of us. And so it was one of those things that's just been in my family. And so when I was a teenager and I would come to my mom like, oh, I need some money so I can go do XYZ with my friends. She's like, oh, so you mean you need to work? All right, well, here's your list that you have to go base coat this for me or do that or whatever, you know, because my parents were never gonna be like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna give you money. Nah, you gotta earn it, which is great, because I'm glad they taught us like that. And we never felt entitled to anything. We knew we had to work for anything that we wanted. And so, you know, growing up, anytime I wanted money, yard art was that way for me to earn it. And so the older I got, I've always done it as a hobby, as an adult, you know, to earn ends meet. When I was telling everybody at the beginning, I was a single mom for a little bit before I met Zach. And it was just me and Carly. And trying to take care of my child and supporting her and raising her on my own. Between, you know, being a teacher at the time, I was teaching in Pasadena and paying daycare. I don't even remember how much that was, but I know it was crazy. But paying daycare on my own, and a house note and a car note and, you know, everything. You know, it just wasn't enough. I had to supplement some more income. And so yard art had always been that for me. And I want to say, y'all, my first year of doing yard art as a hobby, I might have made 500 bucks. Okay. My second year, I might have made 2,500 bucks. You know, it wasn't like I out the gate, I started hard and heavy. It wasn't anything like that. It's been one of those things that I've done more and more and more over the years, but I left teaching in 2015 to work for myself full-time after my daughter lost her father. He passed away. And so that was my last school year of teaching because she was really, really struggling. And I realized that my child needed me more than, you know, students in a classroom that still had their parents. And so it was one of those things where I had to make a decision to do what was best for Carly, which is my daughter, period, point blank. You know, I'd hang the moon, I'd do anything for her. She's my kid. And so I had to, you know, turn to what I knew, which was painting. And so I've been doing this 5 years, working for myself, and it has just been the most rewarding thing ever. I love working for myself. I love being my own boss. Now, I work honestly too much. I probably should pull back a little bit, but it's so great because, you know, the school calls and, oh, Carly's sick, no problem, I'll be there in 5 minutes. You know, Carly has an appointment, we gotta go run here, we gotta go do this, we gotta go do that. And I can do that because I have that option, because I do get to be my own boss. You know, so that's always been nice. It's just, it all started as a pursuit of a hobby and turning that hobby into a business. That's really what it is. Mishan, I'm so glad I pronounced that right. Because you know what? When I used to teach school and it was the first day of school and I'd be trying to pronounce people's names, oh my goodness, I felt like I butchered probably 80% of the kids' names in my classroom. So I'm so glad that I said that one right. Y'all, I just realized on the leaf, I forgot to do a tad bit of shading. This is just a little tiny bit of a dark green. Just a tiny, tiny bit. I want you to look real close and see how subtle that is. It's not very much. So look on the corner of my brush. I do not have very much. I have just a tiny little bit. And I'm gonna kind of start at the base of where that leaf is and then bring it out to the tip in one swoop. One little swoop, that's it. This piece is too small to try to get a lot of detail in there for me. I don't do good at small detail work. So a couple little swishes on there and I'm good. Okay, now I think we're good to go to black. So let me cap this one, because those of you that have been watching me for a while, y'all know I'm really good at flipping cups over and dripping paint everywhere and making a huge mess. So, oh, thank you, Mishan. You said what an incredible testimony. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, you know, I feel like our lives, like as in like me, my daughter, they've been crazy over the last, I don't know, 5+ years. It's just been nuts. No, more than 5 years, probably 6 years. And, but at the end of the day, you know, it's, everything that's happened has put us in such a better place than we were before, you know. I still remember one time we went to, we used to live next to a Kroger, right? And we went to go grocery shopping. I think Carly was maybe 3 at the time. She's 10 now, she's about to be 11, but she was 3. And I told her when we got there, because you know, it's a 3-year-old, you have to give them their expectations before you go in the store. Like, mommy's not gonna buy you everything. You throw a fit and we're gonna leave. Like, you know, you have to lay out the expectations of what you want them to act like while they're in the store and what's gonna happen and what we're gonna do. And so, you know, I had told her, Carly, we're gonna go get some groceries and mommy doesn't have much money right now. So we're gonna have to make sure that we're counting out and paying attention to what we're doing, because I don't want to get to the register and I can't pay for everything. And she's like, yeah, okay, mommy. And she had told me, well, you could just use your debit card, mom, and just swipe your debit card. And I was like, no, you have to have money on your debit card to swipe your debit card. I thought it was the sweetest, it was the cutest, sweetest thing. But then after that, I literally had my phone, and I had my calculator open, and we were calculating everything that we put into our shopping cart, because that week I only had $50 for groceries. And it's kind of embarrassing to say, but it's really not, because I feel like so many of us have been in that boat where you have $50 for groceries, or you have $50 or whatever it is, you know, to pay for something, and you're worried that that's not going to get you through. And so at such a small age, you know, I was picking out stuff like ramen noodles and packs of lunch meat and Ritz crackers, and I would make her own Lunchables, you know, because she wanted Lunchables. That was cool, but I'm like, I'll make you some that are a lot cheaper. And as we were going through the store and she started to see things that she wanted, she would look at me and she's like, Mommy, it's okay, I don't have to have that. And something then and there just told me, you know what, I'm the one who made it feel like, you know, my daughter has to have this and she has to have that in order for me to be a good mom, or in order for me to be able to provide for her the way I felt like I was supposed to provide for her. But her response in that moment, when I was really low, it was just so sweet, and it helped me to see that as a mom and you know, a parent, our kids don't really need much from us. They need us to teach them, they need us to love them, they need us to nurture them, but they don't need money, and they don't need material things. They need some food in their bellies, but more than that, they need a lot of love. And it really was just something that changed my outlook on what it was that I felt like was a look of success, you know? And I feel like so many of us as moms, or, you know, even you and spouses together, all of us have had those hard times before where you say, man, how am I going to get through this? Or how are we going to make this work? And somehow it always ends up working. And life like that just happened to work for us, because when I left teaching, I really left because I was in an emotional place, and I didn't have necessarily the financial backing to leave, but God provided for me, because he put it on my heart that I needed to leave. I didn't have the answers in how to do so, but I knew that I needed to, because my child needed me. And I really, sometimes it's easy to forget about why I got into painting and why I got into doing this full time. But it's so nice to be able to think back onto this and think back onto all that we've been through and look at where we are now. And I would have never thought when I originally did this that we would be here. And it's just crazy. It's totally crazy. I'm so grateful for it. I'm so thankful, you know, to have all of you guys here as our customers. I'm thankful to have had all the hard times, because they really make you see life in a different way and appreciate things in a different way and have a perspective that you wouldn't have had otherwise, you know. And I feel like I've been on a tangent, but sometimes you just feel yourself, you know. So life's been it's been pretty good to us overall. We've had some rough years, but you got to make the best of it. I feel like all of us have had rough years before. And now sometimes Carla will come out here and she wants to start painting with me, and that's fun to see. So I'm using that script liner number 4, and this is just my regular black number 37. All of this paint is just exterior latex house paint. There is nothing special about it. And at this moment, all I'm doing is filling in those lines that are already etched on this piece from the CNC. That is all I am doing. Now, okay, so I outlined my flowers. Now I'm gonna take my script liner and just add a couple, you know, I just did some little swishy lines, some kind of W's or C's, and I'm gonna come in and do the same thing with the black and same thing with the white, except I'm not trying to necessarily follow the lines that I already have there. So, you know, just kind of something like that. I know it might look a little funky right now, but when we get the white added into there, it's really gonna add a lot more. Let's see, my mom says you've been incredibly strong to get through the last 5 or 6 years. You know, it's not a, I don't think anybody, you don't realize how strong you are till you're forced. You're forced to be strong and you have no options. That's when you really learn how to be strong, you know. And I never thought that we could have gotten through a lot of the stuff that we did, but we did. And we're on the other side, and we're on a happier, better side now. And I'm grateful for all of our experiences, really. We wouldn't be where we are without it. All right, so I am just gonna follow along with these CNC lines and do my little spider web here. Some of these lines are a little deeper, so if you're seeing me go back over them a couple of times, it's because those lines are a little deeper than I typically like. Like I said, our CNC has been kind of having a lot of issues this week and carving really funky. I had to throw away or actually burn a couple of pieces that just came out either really, really deep or too shallow where you couldn't see them. So this particular piece is a little on the deeper side. So I might have to go over top those lines a couple of times just to get them filled. I know y'all, if anybody had tuned into Tamara's live, she did do the same exact thing with interior paint. So it's all the same concept. If you've already watched that video, then you know. You know what you're doing. This is just with yard art material and exterior paint. And MDO as our base. It's a major difference. MDF is for door hangers and MDO is gonna be for yard art. So, I do need to come in here on the center right here because I did that black. I didn't do it with the script liner and really kind of clean up those lines. So let me just clean them up just a little bit. I get kind of picky about my lines when it comes to my designs or my pieces. You know, I want to make sure they look really crisp and clean. So now I'm just gonna outline my nose and then do my mouth in this little spider web at the bottom, and then this piece will be done. This one's nice and easy. I think I had told y'all on one video, I can't remember. I feel like we talk all the time. But I did have 2 other sugar skulls that we were gonna do, but they were so intricate. And I was like, okay, this is gonna be a pattern that takes a really long time. So I ended up kind of nixing those ideas and forgoing those and just doing one. This one's a lot simpler than the other 2 that I picked out. So I'm kind of sitting inside of those lines that are etched for me, and I'm taking that brush and I'm getting down in that groove and just filling it in. That's all I'm doing. Filling in those lines. If I accidentally cross over those lines, no big deal. I stick my paintbrush down in there and I take it on across and I keep on moving. Now last night we had a Zoom meeting with our Academy ladies, and that's our paid membership. And I was sitting here painting, and you know, while we were chit-chatting and stuff, and the ladies started asking me, I think it was Joyce and Debbie, they were like, how do your lines come out so smooth? You know, because I told them you load your brush up with paint, right? Well, when you're doing like a profile, an outline of something, and then you start to follow along with it and take that paint around. And they said, well, how are you doing that without a big glob? And I said, oh, you start lightly, and then as you're coming down, you get heavier and heavier with your hand. They're like, oh, you've never told us that before. I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. So I want to make sure that we talk about that a little bit. Now, I'm not so much doing that action right now because I'm trying to fill in those lines, and I'm not covering a really big or a large area at this moment. So at this moment, I kind of load my tip and then I offload my tip into these groups, right? But when I'm doing my edges, or I'm doing, you know, a piece or I'm doing a line that goes very long. It's, you know, long, or it goes across the whole piece. It's a lot easier to load your paintbrush with a lot of paint and start on one side and glide that brush to the other. And I'm realizing after we had our Zoom meeting last night that I don't think we've done the best job of necessarily explaining that. So I'm gonna show you guys right now, because the only thing I've got left to do is getting my perimeter done. So whenever I'm doing anything, when it comes to, like I said, really long lines or the outline part or the profile part of the piece, and I'm loading a lot of paint and you guys are sitting here and watching me, I think this is the part I've not done a great job at explaining. So you're gonna want to load that paintbrush up where it has a lot on there. Now, y'all know mine is bent and all twisted because I literally paint hundreds, if not thousands of pieces with this one brush. And it's a $4 brush, so to me, if it bends and it works easier for me, I don't care, because I'll replace it in a few months anyways. But you're gonna load it a lot, take that tip and dip that tip off on the corner, right? Then I'm gonna take all this paint in my brush and I'm gonna bring it down to my piece. Now, once I come and I touch down on my piece, I'm not dripping all that paint on there. I'm almost barely touching. And I start to find a glide. As I'm gliding, I take that brush and I get a little bit heavier with it. My pressure going down gets heavier. I put more pressure the further away I get. And that is how you're gonna get longer strokes with your brush. I think we told you guys, you know, if you try to move faster, it's easier. And then Joyce and Debbie were telling us last night, no, that doesn't work so easy. I was like, okay, well, maybe we need to explain it better. Load your brush, and when you start, you're gonna start really light. The further that you're going in that stroke, you're gonna put a little more pressure and a little more pressure and a little more pressure. When you start to lose the glide of paint coming out of your brush is when you go all the way down with pressure. I think that will help you guys a little bit. But that is my finished piece on here. Now, as far as the outline, I want to take this one that we just base coated. I'm going to do the same thing. I just want to show this to you. I'm going to load that brush, get it completely full, take the little tip off. My brush is full. It's got a lot of paint in there. I'm going to start wherever it is that I wanted to start. I start light. And the further I get, my hand's gonna get a little bit heavier until you can start to see, whoopsie, so you can start to see that I run out of paint. So look at where I started. I know I need to come back through here. But you can see the difference of here when I'm running out of paint. When I'm running out of paint is when I'm putting the most pressure. Up here, when I have a lot of paint, I'm not putting very much pressure. And I hope that will be something that helps you guys when you're doing script lining, outlining, anything like that. Because I know it's not an easy task. Script lining, shading was something that, both of those things, that were very hard for me when I was learning how to do yard art. I can't tell you how many times I was painting a piece and I loaded it up in my car and I drove over to my mom's house and I said, show me what I need to do. I've worked on this forever. I need help. And she would literally pick up a script liner and usually pick a white and go boop, 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 boop. And it was done. It was like a totally different piece. I'm like, what? How'd you do that? You know, so it's one of those things that I've been there. I so understand. And time and practice and patience will help you. They'll be your friend. And you guys have recorded videos to go and watch. When I learned how to do all this, I had to go to my mom's house, sit and watch, and then try to go home and, you know, duplicate what it was that she did. So I hope that this is a little bit easier for you than how I had to learn how to paint. But the only thing we got left to do on this was is a little highlights. You all know we are never, ever, ever, ever finished with yard art until we get highlights on it. Highlights, highlights, highlights. You've got to have highlights. I'm gonna mix it over here because I'm already slinging stuff out on my table. I'm a messy painter, y'all. That's why you see my silicone ring on all the time, because my diamond ring gets paint in the diamonds and then it doesn't come out. So I almost live in the silicone ring because you could see the paint like in my fingernails too. I mean, it's just constant. I'm a messy painter. It don't bother me. I'm used to it. I'm gonna take a little bit of that white, come into the eyeball and fill in the little circles. Highlights are gonna be that one thing that really brings your whole piece together. It's so, so, so important. If there's anything that you learn, I'm gonna say highlights are more important than shading. It's one of those things. I learned shading before highlights, and I always felt like my stuff was always missing something, and it was really just missing this. And I didn't quite know how to do all of it at the beginning, and highlights were one of those things that I learned almost last out of the group. So all I did was dip the tip of my brush in some white. It barely has any on here. So when it comes to this, I literally dip and wipe off. Dip, wipe off. I don't want very much. I kind of wipe that off so that I can get some light, small strokes. And then I'm gonna come in here. Remember I told y'all that our flowers might look a little crazy right now, but we would kind of fill it in. This is where that white comes in handy. Any place that you might feel like looks too open and has too much space, that's where you're gonna wanna bring in a little bit of white. So pop a little bit in there. I'm gonna put a little, I got a little black in there. That's okay. Anytime I do that, just take a little bit more white over top of it. Ta-da! Done. The white highlights add so much more to this piece than it had before I did the white. So nice and easy. Well, I say nice and easy, I think a little too much. My nice and easy is probably a little different than your nice and easy. But this pattern is a little simpler in the way of it doesn't have your typical shading that we usually do, your perimeter shading that might be a little more difficult for people. It has a couple of light wispy lines for shading, and the rest is all script line work. So if a script liner is something you're more comfortable with, this piece would be perfect for you. Because you don't have to really worry about shading. It's a little bit of base coating and it's a lot of outlining, and that's pretty much it. So it is nice and simple, and that is the finished product. So that one's our wet one. That's my dry one. Nice and simple and easy. I hope you guys like this tutorial. It was nice and fast. Tomorrow night I'm gonna be back at 7 o'clock, and we are gonna do our Free Pumpkins barrel. So I love the way the base of this came out. I did poly this today, so it's nice and shiny. But I love how the base of this came out with a little dry brushing and shading. So we're gonna work on this one tomorrow at 7 o'clock. I hope you guys will join me then. And I don't see any questions. So if there's any questions that I missed, I'll go back and check them after our live. But otherwise, thank you guys so much for joining me tonight and listening to me talk your ears off. We are going to, let's see, go watch Big Brother, because we're missing Big Brother, and get tucked in and ready for bed, because it's school night. And we're going to tour another private school tomorrow. So wish us luck on finding a better solution for the whole virtual learning thing, because it's been crazy for us. And thank y'all so much for coming tonight. I appreciate y'all being here. Joyce, Debbie, Jody, thank y'all. It's so good to see y'all. And I will see y'all tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Bye guys, y'all have a good night.